Hey guys, it's Doc, and today we're going to do a real quick run through on how to assemble the mats. This is a remake of the original. This isn't the original one because we've changed it a little bit. And then we're going to show you how to actually install the mats inside different sluice operations, because that always comes up as a question, because especially with something like the scrubber mat, on the scrubber mat you're not going to have riffles on top or bars, or so how do I get that to stay in my sluice bed? So we're going to show you a couple little tricks that we've designed. Takes a little bit of creativity, but I think most everybody should be able to do it. It's pretty easy to do as long as you got some basic tools. And so let's go ahead and we'll get started. If you want to use the mats alone, like a scrubber mat inside of a sluice bed. So if you wanted to use it inside of a sluice bed, normally you have a set of riffles in here, or riffle bars, or something to hold that in. So how do I hold that in? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you with a couple of basic tools and pieces of equipment that you can get either online or at Home Depot or at Lowe's. You can get this stuff readily available, nothing specialty, and you can sort of make it yourself. And the same theory applies. We use it in our sluices now, and on our high bankers and our dredges. A lot of times you don't have to damage any, you don't have to drill holes in any equipment a lot of times, which is nice. It depends on the equipment. Sometimes you may need to grab, and I think I've got one around here, but you may need to buy a rivet gun. Some people like to rivet this stuff in, and I do too. I love rivets. They're cheap. For $10 you can get a rivet gun set, cheap rivet gun set. Rivets are 2 or 3 cents a piece, so you can make a lot of mistakes. So you can do it that way, but we're going to show you a couple different ways, and I'm going to zoom in up close, like I said, and show you how to do this pretty simply on just about any sluice, high banker, or dredge, and how you can set it up. But again, each unit's different. You're going to have to use a little creativity. Okay guys, I told you I'd go ahead and show you a little trick that we came up with for holding the mats in place, and this seems to really work well. So what I've got is, I've got a sheet of, I believe it's called, let's just read it, it's called Plat Steel 26 gauge, and I bought this at Lowe's. And if you want to know, of course I cut off the label, but they have a stock number on it of 11179, and I think it's by Hillsman Metal is the name of the company. But what this is this is plated zinc. Okay, you can hear it. It's plated zinc. You can see the texture on it. And the reason why we use this is because it has a very good memory to it. But the reason is, if I were to do this to a sheet of aluminum, that sheet of aluminum wouldn't bounce back. So, and that's the nice thing about this zinc. Stainless steel sort of does it too, but it's a little bit, I prefer the zinc. The only problem with this zinc and the 26 gauge is, I'm going to warn you, wear eyeglasses and wear leather gloves when you're doing this. I'm not doing it wearing gloves right now, but do as I say, not as I do, please. This is a great way to get cut. It's a great way to get a metal fragment in your eye, and there's a bunch of little sharp little shards that will come out while you're doing this. Trust me. If you want to see a grown man cry, get a shard in your finger and wait about 3 weeks, because it will kill you and won't come out. So wear gloves, wear eye protection. Warning, 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 flash across the screen. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sluice, and you have to excuse me because I'm working in a real tight area here. I got all kinds of stuff and I got the camera focused one little area. Excuse me. So all I've done is I've measured my sluice. So I've got a sluice here, and what I've done is I've measured right where the sluice joins up right in here. I've measured the inside dimension here, and I don't have to be exact. So what I'm going to do is now I've got a piece of metal. It's about 3 inches wide. You can make it a little bit shorter if you want, make it about 2 inches. And that little piece of metal fits in here. Again, it's not exact, just as long as it sits in here. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is let me show you, first of all, let me show you how this is going to fit. Most of your stream sluices and high bankers or whatever have an attachment screws here. You don't have to take them out, you just have to loosen them. So you have to loosen your sides, loosen these a little bit so you have a little bit of flexibility. You see how it sort of goes up and down? And then loosen these as well. And what we're going to do is we're just going to slide this piece of metal up under here. Okay? We got to be careful because this is sharp. And And what that's going to do is when I tighten it down, it's going to give me a spring-like quality. Okay? So, and then we're going to tighten it back down, but I'm going to show you a little trick. Because the way that we want to install this mat, the mats are heavy. So having the mats, the weight of the mat's going to hold it down, but when you put a lot of water flow, the one thing you don't want is you don't want water flow getting under your mat. All right, so that's our main purpose here. Yes, it's to hold the mat in place a little bit, but we just don't want lift. We don't want water going under that mat. That's our main goal. If we can keep water from going under the mat, then we're good. That's what we want to see. So we're going to create this little situation here. Let me get this out of the way as quickly as I can. So I'm going to put this into my sluice like this. And so now I need a way to get my finger under it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take a pair of tin snips and I'm just going to cut a little hole. I'm just going to cut a little half round circle, about the size of a penny or something like that. And you can get a hammer. If your tin bends up, just hammer it flat again. So there's my little hole. Again, be careful, this is very sharp. The next thing I'm going to do is you can take, put this into a vise, or you can use pliers, or if you happen to have a metal bending tool. I'm just going to take a little piece of this, barely 1/4 of an inch, and all I'm going to do is just bend this right up on itself. I'm not going to do this one too perfect. Basically it's a straight down, it's a 45. Excuse me, a 90. It's just going to come, we're just going to come 90 out like this. Doesn't have to be exact, but close enough. And bend it here. I'm doing this real sloppy, so because I've already got one made. But I think you get the hint now. So now what I've done is I've created a little lip here. And so I've got my little lip there. And if you want to get real fancy, if you want some extra gripping power, of course you can go in here and trim these and put little teeth in here. So you can put little teeth marks in here. But let me tell you what, that's sharp. I mean, it's real dangerous. I prefer just to leave that solid lip. So the next thing you're going to do before you forget is you're going to get metal sanding paper, which I forgot, of course. So you're going to get metal sanding paper. This is emery cloth. It's a medium grade, or you can use fine grade. You're going to knock down all these edges. Now, everyone says, well, I don't have to take the time to do that. Yes, you do. Very, very important. All we want to do is we want to feel rounded edge. This will take you a little bit of time because you got to get these points, you got to knock down these points. Zinc is pretty hard, and we want to get rid of all those points, and we're going to do the whole thing. We're going to sand all these edges so it's nice and smooth, okay? And so now I've got a little finger hole here. I've got a little finger hole sitting there that I can lift up and then let it snap back down. Pretty simple. So I'm going to take the one I already made. And again, so what I've done is I've loosened these screws so I have a little bit of flex in this now. That's all I need. You can take them off if you want, but it's easier just to loosen them up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, allow this to come up, I'm going to slide this up under. Okay? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these screws back. I'm not going to do them all the way, but I think you get the hint now. So now what I've got is I've got a very smooth transition. Again, this is why you only want to have about 1/4 of an inch or less on this little lip. You don't want this to stick up too much. So now all I have to do is I pull this up, just bite my mat. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that. So here we are again. So now I've installed this, I've slid this under here, I've tightened this back down, and if you hear a bird out the window, you'll understand why. But all I have to do is I just have to pull this up with a finger, pull this up with a finger, slide the tip of my mat under there, and now I'm done. So now my material is going to come across and go like this, and my mat is in there securely. I don't have to worry about it. So that's a real easy way to say, well, how do I get this mat to hold? Again, you know, it's a $3 piece of zinc, and it works extremely well on this. It's a nice smooth little ramp here. The material comes up. Again, you may have lights launch, but that's okay. Your gold is settled. Your gold's going to hit this, and it's going to come in and work perfectly. Trust me, we've done this a lot. So, real easy transition. And again, you don't want to stick. If you're using, this is the scrubber mat. So if you're using, let's just turn, let me see if I have a piece of the UR. And then again, here's the UR mat. Duck flies north, so you don't have to get it really far in there. You just basically, run it to grab it. I haven't even gone into this top area here. So if you're using the UR mat, there you go, that's it right there. So that's how we do it. That's how we install it in most of our sluices. Pretty simple, pretty easy to do. Take you probably about 15 minutes. Like I said, if you have a high banker, what you would do is you would take this and you would just simply rivet it flat right onto the bed of the sluice. 1/8 inch rivets, 1 inch little holes, just put 2 of them in here, put it up at the top so you have the spring action, okay? And be careful, this has to be sanded really well. So you just put your finger in there and it'll snap back down. Again, you don't want it too tight to the sides because it'll bind on the sides. So, and if you want to bend it a little bit and say, well, it's too much spring, you can bend it a little bit. Again, the mat will go up under it. That's how you can do it. You just put it in there, then when you're done, when you want to clean out your sluice, just pop it out, boom, you're done. Real simple, great way to attach it to a sluice bed. Easiest way that you can do it. Again, all we care about is water going under the mat. The mat will stay. It's going to be in here pretty tight anyways with your taped edges. Just sand it over. Okay guys, and so now I'm going to show you how to install the mat. We had a previous video on here that I need to probably remove if I haven't removed it. We've sort of changed the way that we want you to install this, and I'll tell you why real quickly. It's because we're afraid that people are going to make mistakes. That's the honest truth. And there's a simpler way to do this. So without worrying about putting a whole bunch of super glue along here and then it does not line up right, you know, we've come up with a real simple way to do this that if you make a mistake, you don't have to freak out about it. And that's what I like. I really like this. Actually, Tom thought of this. I'm too dumb to think about it. So he's the one that actually came up with this. And it is a much, much better way to do this. So I've got my 2 mats. So there's always what I call the nose end, which looks like a duck. So if you see it here, it actually looks like a duck. That's what I call it. That's the nose. And then there's a butt end, okay? And believe it or not, people remember the butt end easier than the nose end. So the mat has a butt. Where's it gonna go poo? It's gonna go poo out of the end with the hole in it. I don't know why, but people remember that better for some reason. So this is the butt end. So the butt end always faces down your sluice. The nose always faces north up to the flow. So you're gonna measure the inside of your sluice, and you're gonna determine, since we're gonna have tape along the sides, we're gonna do a tape fold up. So we're gonna measure it. You're gonna leave about, just right at a 1/4 of an inch shy. 1/4 of an inch seems to work well. You don't have to worry because we're gonna do the tape situation. If you wanna do it 3/16, if you're that exact, you could probably get away with 3/16, but we're gonna have folded up tape on each side that folds up on the mat. So you gotta leave a little bit of room in there. And trust me, it'll be tight. That tape, the good thing about that tape system is it sort of snugs it in at a 1/4 of an inch. So here's how we're gonna do it. I'm not gonna show you how to cut it yet. I'm gonna show you how to assemble it first. So all you're gonna do is when this comes in, and especially when you start to deal with the scrubber mat, this is the scrubber mat. And the scrubber mat, because how heavy and how thick the face is on this scrubber mat, this tail end seems to want to turn down. so it wants to turn down. So the first thing you should do, and do this with all your mats, is before you're going to take this, you're going to say, okay, yep, they're the right size, they're perfect, I'm ready to go. Just take this tail end, and all you're going to do is just sort of do that, just sort of lift up on it, so it flares up a little bit, and then you can just push the other mat right into it, push them down together, and it clicks. You'll hear it sort of click into place. So now my mats are together, they're lined up. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit for you so you can get this a little better. So now I've done this, and I always like to, again, I'm just going to flare it just a little bit, not much, push it in. I always put one side in first and then push it together, and there you go. If it's not perfect, it really doesn't matter. The main thing is you want to try and get your alignment right here. So before, we used to have you super glue this whole thing, and if it was off, well, super glue is dry in 5 to 10 seconds, or it's at least setting, and you freak out because you've ruined a whole mat. You're down to your last. So here's what we want you to do. Take a little piece of Gorilla Tape. This is the Gorilla Tape. You get it at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I've cut it into thirds, so this is just under 1/2 inch. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put it and join the mats on the top. All right, so now I've joined them on the top. Have not glued them yet. It's dirty. Now I'm going to take a full piece on the back. Put a full piece on the back. Okay? So now I've got my mat, and it's pretty much, it's set. It's not going to come apart. So here's what we're going to have you do now. Now you can go back once you get your mat assembled, and now you can go back in with your super glue. So now you can go in, and you're just going to lift up this little lip right here, since it's already joined at the bottom, and just put two drops in there if you want. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm just going to squeeze a drop in here. Just line that in here. Or put a couple drops. Put a drop in here. Drop in here. And I'm only going to do probably about 3 or 4 drops. Just put a little bit in there, like this. Push the mat down. Let it bind on the glue. Put my tape back on it. And so now I've got my mat, the glue's on it, let it cure for at least 12 hours. You will not be able to get this apart in 20 minutes, but I like to set, I don't like to stick it under water for 12 hours. I don't know if it's really dry or not. And you really can't get that apart. So I've got, I'm pulling hard on this, and I've just got the tape on this. So you have to understand, the glue is not that important. And this is super glue, Gorilla super glue. Again, I wish I owned stock of this company. I don't. Gorilla super glue, Gorilla whatever. Don't do anything crazy about getting the slow cure gel or whatever. Just regular Gorilla super glue, so you can see what it is. And then Gorilla tape. It's that double stick black stuff. It's waterproof, it stays on there. We've had it for days and days underwater. It's the best stuff ever made. So that's how you're going to assemble your mat. So that's how you put it together. Now, if you want to, let's say, and the other reason for this is, if you want to just put 1 drop of super glue, you can rip 1 drop of super glue out with a ton of force, and it doesn't really damage the mat that much. So if you ever want to change the assembly or configuration, you can do that. But you can, like you see right here, this is just taped. There's no glue on this. This is just taped, and I can't pull it apart. So it'll work with just the tape. But as you can see here, I've got a strip of the UR mat, excuse me, a strip of the scrubber mat, and then I've got UR, and then I've got scrubber. And that's really the configuration that we're telling people to go with if they're going to put this in, especially if you're working with a lot of black sands, if you've got working beach material, if you've got a lot of black sand, what we recommend is 2 strips of the scrubber mat, 1 strip UR. 2 strips scrubber, 1 strip UR. And what ends up happening is the scrubbing action comes in here, and it just settles, consistently settles again, and then it comes up and gets worked by 2 more strips. It's a great combination. Of course, if you have a header box on a high banker or whatever it is, you're going to want to start, this whole configuration. You put this under your header box. I can't say that enough. ditch the slick plate. You do not need a slick plate on a high banker. You do not need one on any mechanicalized dredging equipment or high banking equipment. On a sluice, you probably need it because it needs some momentum. But all you're doing, people are saying, well, I'm letting my gold settle. Well, is there some magic resistance between rubber and metal? Does gold settle less fast on rubber or a metal? No, it settles exactly the same. But what it does is this gives you the opportunity while it's settling with no turbulence, this allows you to actually catch some of that gold. And if you have water pouring down on this, it actually creates this little quasi fluid bed. So you'll actually catch material inside your box. When we go up to a couple of places we know where they crush ore and we run some of their crushed ore, we'll catch 60% of our gold right under our header box by using this UR mat right under the header box. So use this if you can, unless you need momentum. Remember, there's no reason to give gold energy. We want to slow it down. That's why I hate plastic materials. So when it comes to gold, I don't like plastic materials. As an example, a Miller table. Would you use glass on a Miller table? No, you're going to use chalkboard. Why? Because there's a certain drag coefficient. There's a certain drag to it. And gold just drags on this. Gold hates to move on this surface. It just stops it, slows it down. It's amazing when you see it. So this rubber is perfect for stopping gold. And I can't say that enough. So if you have an aluminum, that you're coming in contact with your gold, get rid of it, put this mat in it, get rid of that slick plate, put this in it right now. It'll settle exactly the same. Lesson learned, stress that point enough. Okay, so how do I cut this stuff? That's the next thing. So let's go back to the beginning. We changed that just a little bit too. So I'll show you, this is a full piece. Let me zoom out just a little bit. This is a full piece of the UR mat. It comes in, it's 36 or 37 inches, but it's right about 36 inches. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take it, really nice shard of metal sitting on there. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take it, I use a Sharpie so I can see it, just get it in a place with a good light, even though it's black on black. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, so I need one that's 9 3/4. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to mark the top, 9 3/4. I'm going to mark the middle, 9 3/4. I'm going to mark the end, 9 3/4. People say, well, why are you doing that? Why don't you just make one mark and use a T-square? Well, there's a reason for it. Well, there's a flat edge on this and a normal edge on it. I actually did it backwards, sorry. So you want to use, if you're going to use a T-square or any kind of square, always have this. This is the butt side of the square. So 9 3/4. So this is the flat side. I'm going to take my square, I'm going to put it on it, look at it, make sure they're touching, mark it, and now I'm ready to go. And again, if your sluice box has any variance, if there's a difference in your sluice box, most of them aren't, but you're going to want to number your mats. This one's at the top, this one's number 2, this one's number 3, and you want to do that. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you've got to have a very sharp knife. Don't use an old blade, use a new blade. Again, do as I say, not as I do. And all we're going to do is we're going to mark it, and we're going to make one score on this, but we're not going to try and cut deep. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm just going to put it on here, I'm going to give medium pressure, I'm going to just follow that down. And I'm not trying to cut all the way through the mat, I'm just scoring, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take something around. So I use PVC, and I just put it under it. And you can see when I put this on the round piece, how it opens up. So now I've opened up. So now I've got it in the middle, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run square down here. So I'm gonna keep my blade square, and I'm just gonna gently just keep running down it. And this is what we found, is this is a great way just to keep it, and you'll have a nice square cut. We've actually tried some kind of mechanical blade cutters, and with rubber it doesn't work because you're pushing it and it'll deform. This is the best way we found to cut it. Now, you may look at this and say, hey, that's not straight. don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect along the sides because you're going to have that tape roll up and it'll be just fine. So there's my 9 3/4 and I'm ready for another one. Now we get to the scrubber mat. And the scrubber mat's a little bit more difficult, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the scrubber mat, when the scrubber mat is formed, let me see if I can get this wide for you. When the scrubber mat is formed, this is an extremely heavy piece of material, this top lip, okay? So this top riffle is extremely heavy. And as it extrudes out, this has a tendency to slow it down as it's extruding. So it has sometimes a very almost unnoticeable little arch to the material. It's not square unless you pull it square. So, and it's about 1/8 of an inch or maybe 3/16 from 36 to 36 the whole width. And if you hold it up, you can barely see it if you sit on the table, but it doesn't have any effect on the mat. It still installs. Even if you're installing 36-inch wide strips together, it doesn't bother. That's just normal for this type of extrusion. Once you get it in there and assemble it, especially on your 10, 12, and 14s, once you get it in there and get it pushed in, locked in, you won't even notice it. This, you can tell it's not lying flat on the table, so you gotta be a little bit more careful. And it's a little deceptive because you have a little bit of an arch here. You just gotta be careful. And what I do is I always measure. So I'll measure 9, I'll measure from side to side. I'm gonna measure it and cut top and bottom. So again, I'm gonna measure it, I'm gonna mark it. I'm gonna do this upside down on the mat. So I'm doing it on the bottom. 9 3/4. 9 3/4, always 3 marks. 9 3/4. I'm gonna put this ruler on, but I'm going to go by the marks. I'm not going to go by the squareness. So I'm going to take my marks. And then I'm going to cut it. Same situation. I'm just going to put this on here. And again, it's hard to do this because you have this little lip here. And I just hold it on there. So I'm not trying to cut the mat all the way through. So let's make sure we understand that. Again, I'm not trying to cut all the way through. All I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to score this. That's all I want to do is I just want to score that line in there. Same thing. Now I put it under something round. You can see that it shows up. All I'm going to do now, sometimes I'll put something heavy on one end of it. And then I'm just going to come in square, hold my blade square, and I'm just going to keep coming down across. Just let the knife do the work, don't press down. You got to have a long blade on it to reach all the way through it. And that's it. And so now I've got my mat, 9 3/4. So, now, if I wanted to go ahead and take this 9 3/4 and 9 3/4, I'd be able to put it in here. And I was actually pretty close on that one. Like I said, you'll probably end up being a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off sometimes on your cuts, but don't worry about it. But that is why I like to measure all these. And I really don't like to use a template. But the same thing, go in there. If I need to flare up the butt, I'm going to flare up the butt end. Pop it in. Put a full piece of tape across, all the way across on this connector. Flip it over. And again, now when I do this bottom piece, if you try and get it flat, you'll see that the mat sort of opens up because you got the scrubber on here. So I always like to put something under here, under that high end, and then I tape it. So you understand that? This has this, otherwise it'll rock, and you want the mat sort of squeezed together. So all I'm gonna do is just take a piece of tape. Thank God for teeth. Okay, so now I've got my mat. I put my tape on. Now I'm going to turn it over. Now I can take this tape off the front. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take something and just put it under one edge like this. So now, let me show you that again. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to put something under the middle again. I mean, it can be a pencil. I'm just going to put a Sharpie under there, and I'm just going to let the mat sort of fall. So you can see how that opens up now. But the larger something you put under there, let's use the razor blade as an example. The larger piece, the larger object you put under there, the more it's going to open up. Okay, so now I have this big gap here. Guess what that allows me to do? That allows me to go in here and put in the super glue. I can run my super glue in there now, fold it up, close it, tape it temporarily. Okay guys, I just realized the camera keeps going out of focus because it hates the mat, just so you know. That's why it keeps blurring. So I probably need to keep my hand here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all sluices have the potential for side losses. So high bankers and dredges, everything shakes. There's a very little vibration, and gold has a tendency to walk. The nice thing about this mat is you can actually close up the sides. Normally you're going to have some losses if you have riffles on top, and you're going to have side losses. And that's one of the benefits of this mat. So I'm going to show you how we do that real quick. And this is the side tape that we talk about. And it's a pretty easy thing to do. All you're going to do is, again, you're going to take your Gorilla Tape. And I even do this, if I have a really long mat, I'll do this in sections. But I'll do this one since this is short. I'm just repairing one of our working mats that I sort of messed up. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to hang it over the edge a little bit, just like this. Then I'm going to take the tape, and I'm going to put the tape about halfway on the mat underneath, just like this. I'm actually going to go less than that, because this is a UR mat, so I'm going to go a little bit less. Probably something like about that. So I put the tape on upside down, so this is the sticky part. So the sticky part is right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this tape on itself. I'm just going to fold this tape on itself. And I'm going to do that all the way up. I'm going to go right up to the edge of the mat. And I'm going to leave something here so that the camera stays focused. Hopefully. But what it does is it actually folds up on the mat. So it actually this tape will close up and seal up these sides where it goes in. That's why we say cut the mat about 1/4 of an inch narrower than your exact sluice width. And then when you put this in, this tape will fold up on the sides and it'll seal that side. And that catches all your side losses, any potential for side losses. It's a really neat feature about this mat, especially when we work with higher production facilities. They have, at high volumes, they have a large potential for side losses. And this is one of the few mats that can actually do that. So again, it looks like from the bottom, you've got your square regular taping on the bottom, and then you've got your side taping, and that side taping just hangs over about 1/4 of an inch on the UR, and it just folds over when you put it in, seals up those sides, and you have no side losses. So that gold is trapped in there. It's a really neat feature, and we really like that. Now when you get to the scrubber mat, obviously the scrubber mat is a little bit thicker, but I'm not worried about the riffle height. I'm just worried about these grooves in here. So same thing, about 1/4 of an inch all the way across. I'm just worried about sealing up these grooves. Again, this is the nice thing about this mat. It's one of the few mats that you can actually do a side seal on and not worry about. So if you have carpet or miner's moss and then you put riffles on top of that, you're going to have side flow against the side of that sluice, and as the sluice is vibrating, it's very, very gentle. that gold, if you ever tap a gold pan, you can see it, that gold sort of moves. Same thing in the sluice, that gold is going to move eventually. And you know, not all sluices are perfectly level in the field, and if you've got it pitched to the left and there's a vibration motion, well, that gold's going to move one way. So that's a nice little thing to have. That's the side taping part of this. It's real simple, and again, you can't, if you mess it up, you can just pull it off and try it again. All you're risking is tape when you do it. Probably when we use the mats heavy, we have to redo them. Probably about after 20 runs or so, the tape might get worn down and we just pull it off and redo it. So that's the side tape part. Okay, so my favorite mat, this is the alternating pattern, and this is the one that I recommend for everyone. We're gonna run it, it's gonna be UR, scrubber, UR, scrubber, UR, scrubber, etc. And what ends up happening is you get a mild turbulence through the scrubber, good working action, and then you get this sort of valley effect of the UR mat, and it's just a total valley in here, nice and smooth. It runs over it before it goes to the next scrubber section. It's an amazing little. It's amazing to watch this mat work. But the thing about this mat is it's very versatile. You can take it, you can work beach sands with it, then you can go and you can work a heavy clay area, then you can work heavy old creek beds, you can dredge with it, you can high bank with it. This pattern is probably the most versatile of any that you'll find out there. All you have to do is just adjust your pitch based on your area, a little bit of flow, tune those dials in, and you can take this mat anywhere. It is fantastic the way that this performs. So we're going a strip of UR, strip of scrubber, strip of UR. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it together for you real quick so you can see it. And I'm assuming you're not gonna watch the whole thing, or we're gonna speed it up. And I'm gonna do it pretty much just like I showed you before. The same thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flare up the butt end. And the nice thing is I can go ahead and get a good alignment on this. I'm gonna try and get it so I'm completely aligned. Then I'm gonna take a strip of tape. I'm gonna put my strip of tape on, and I'm gonna hold it there. Then I'm gonna move on to my next mat. So I got a scrubber. Now I'm going to a UR. Flare the butt. Put on my UR. Square it up as best I can. And again, it's important to understand that this mat might be a tiny bit smaller than this mat, but it really doesn't matter. What I'm more concerned about is making sure that it's fairly even. I'm gonna take another strip of tape, lock this in place. Now I need a scrubber, so now I'm gonna go to a scrubber. Flare the butt, put my scrubber on, piece of tape. And again, these are about 1/3. The tape is about 1/3 of a regular roll of that duct tape. I just bite them and tear them into 1/3 strips. Now for this last section, I'm actually using a UR because I got to cut it. Because I've got to cut this mat to length. I'm a little bit long. So I'm going to cut I want to cut a UR. I don't want to cut a scrubber. And so now what I'm going to do, now I've got this assembled, is I'm just going to bring it over and I'm just going to do, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do one flip on it. Now I've done my flip, and my workbench is filthy. Sorry. Make sure we stay focused here. My workbench is filthy. So now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to see what I've got here, and everything looks good. And again, so if I look at my scrubber mats, I'm going to have a separation here. So when I tape it, I'm going to make sure that they're together. That's all I'm going to do. Now that mat is done, so I'm just going to flip it over again, and I'm just going to double check it. Just make sure I'm all aligned, just make sure all the grooves look good. And so now what I can do, I can actually use this mat as is, or what I recommend, of course, is going in now. And now we're going to take our super glue, leave that here, and I'm going to show you how to do this real quick. It's pretty easy. I'm just going to go to a section and I'm going to take off the tape. Now I'm going to stick something underneath it. You can use a pencil, use whatever you want. I use a little dowel. Put my dowel underneath. Put a little super glue in there. Pull the dowel out, let it fall. Push it together, seal it up. All right, so I know that one's done. And I like to mark it once I glue it while I'm doing this now, because it just simply lets me know, because I like to start more in the middle. You can do it wherever you want, but I like to start in the middle, and it's easier for the camera if I start in the middle. So now I just put an X, that one is done. So now I'm just going to go, again, my dowel, take off my tape. And you can see how nicely it just folds on itself when you do it this way too. This is such a better way to do this mat. And now I'm done. Now, if I wanted to, because I have the tape on here, I could put about 100 pounds of pressure, separating pressure, and this mat wouldn't come apart. Once the glue dries, I can probably put 200 or 300 pounds. We have yet to be able to rip one apart. We have never been able to rip one apart, so you don't want to know what kind of experiments we did with that. It includes weightlifting sets and everything else, so kind of stupid, but we tried and we couldn't get it. We actually, well, I'll tell you, actually what we did is we took one of these mats, we wrapped it around a squat bar, a low squat bar, and we had two people lift as hard as they could, and I think we were up to 280 pounds, and we couldn't get the mat to separate. So that just shows you that this mat, once you do this, it becomes permanent. So now what I'm going to do is, I've got it all flat. I'm going to leave my mat flat, and I'm going to leave it flat for a good 12 hours. I'm going to let it, it's going to cure, and the glue is going to dry. But again, if you wanted to make this temporary, or if you want to change it, you could just use the tape. Or put one drop of super glue right in the middle, one drop, or one drop here and one drop here. If you put one drop in the middle, you can turn this, you can break the mat apart possibly after you take the tape off. It's hard. So this is, again, this is my favorite matting system right here. This is a scrubber scrubber UR. It can be used in any piece of equipment. It can be used for any type of material. You're constantly exposing the material to different types of surfaces. When you're recovering gold, change is good. I can't say that enough. If you just do the same thing over and over and over, it's the definition of insanity. Why do you need to do the same thing over and over for 16 feet? Change it up, expose that gold and expose that dirt to different surfaces, different working. Don't just use our mats. If you have the room, put something else in it. Put a UR and put a scrubber and put some expanded metal with vortex under it, whatever. We don't know, but change, change, change. Consistently change it. That's the key to it. All right, guys. So I hope that was, I hope that helped you a little bit. But I wanted to give you a little bit show of this mat. It's pretty cool. So now you can see the surface on it. It's a pretty cool surface pattern design, but it's a scrubber, UR scrubber. So I go from a scrubber mat to a UR mat to a scrubber mat. And you can actually see that the UR mat has a tiny little inward bow to it, about 1/8 of an inch. And it's just the neatest effect. When it hits this scrubber, it's going down, going down, going down anyways, because that's what the scrubber mat's designed to do. It's reduction. And then it hits this and it just reduces, 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 and then it comes up and hits another scrubber. I'm telling you, it's phenomenal to watch. Wait till you gotta find that video. If I don't have that footage somewhere on here, search our site for that video that's coming out. You're gonna love to watch it. We got some real neat tests with this too. All right, that's it guys, and I hope you had good luck with this installation part of it. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. We'll answer your questions if you have any troubles with the install or anything, or questions about how to make your mats. But that should be about it. Thanks so much and enjoy them.